Hello everybody, my name is Whis. Welcome to a Toonkind roleplay read-aloud. Whoop whoop. I am joined by June. It is now June. I am joined by the lovely and talented and all-around splendid.
Aww. Hi everyone, I'm Vwild! And I am here with the absolutely splendid, fabulous, amazing, wonderful person and fabulous bean. Yeah, you tried to do it to me, I'm firing back, mother pecker.
Not to be outdone, oh my goodness. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a read-aloud, a storytelling of a roleplay that Vwild and I have done in DMs. So yeah, if you were like, oh, I didn't remember the game that happened, it didn't happen in a game. This is just us doing feral roleplay stuff in our DMs.
We are so feral. We are so feral, my dudes. You cannot believe how feral we are.
It's true. It's very true.
I think we've used up all our pins.
Yeah, I think we got maybe one or two left because we'd unpinned some art or some character sheets or something like that. But anyway, I digress. So this little story we're telling today, it starts out on a normal day at the Stagehand's Requiem, before the several different events happen, and it is no longer in Toontown. It's still in Toontown when this happens, and on the regular, Rai has started to get up earlier. He'll make himself a nettle tea, and he'll make some for Lynn as well if she's up too, and then he'll go and loiter in the garden until breakfast is ready. But if you're not aware, Network has a particular way of consuming food and nutrients where the actual matter is left behind still. And Rai would absolutely, at least once, try Nettle's tea after she was done with it.
And Nettle is definitely going to get a giggle at his expense because it is strangely cold and it's devoid of any taste once she's done with it. In her eyes, it's grey. To everyone else, it looks completely normal until sip. Oh, God.
And if he had a tongue, he'd be poking it out in disgust. Oh, that's weird. It doesn't even taste like water. It doesn't taste like anything.
All gone. Energy bond, taste drained. Was very good. Little Rai brother of mine. Very good maker of tea. And yes, there is the hummed giggle at the silly reaction from her brother. Bless him.
Yeah, Rai will pour the contents of the mug down the drain and take their mugs to the sink to wash them. I'm glad you like it. And he looks over at the kitchen door. Is Mom awake?
Yes. Awake, rise and shine. Downstairs in private office. Sorting cases, very important. New and old. Paperwork. Choosing cases before crime lull safe period.
Shall we take her breakfast? I'd be surprised if she ate already.
Oh! Little Lynn warmth bringer, mum of ours, had snack. Had apple. Doing much better. Remember to eat. Yes. Give more. Give full breakfast. Very smart plan. And Network is practically brimming with pride that Lynn remembered to get some food before starting work. A happy little breeze and a flicker of brightening gold showing it clearly.
Oh, good on her, he smiles. What do we make?
There is a contemplative hum before there is a rattling of the pantry shelves and cupboards and the fridge as Network investigates a little of what they have. Eggs, good choice. Eggs and toast.
Oh, I could try and make an omelet. Have we got cheese and ham?
Another rattle before a delighted hum of victory! Have ham! Have many cheese! Behold! And the door of the fridge is going to enthusiastically open, exposing the sliced ham and the box of different cheeses on one shelf.
He giggles. Okay, how hard could this be?
Network agrees! While she can't strike a pose, the hum she makes is very much a challenge accepted!
And Rye rolled really well on cooking that omelette, by the way. So he'll even pop up to the garden for some spring onion to garnish it with. Side of buttered toast, mug of tea, all in a tray. And off he trots downstairs.
Where Lynn is happily tucked in her side office. The door unlocked and ever so slightly ajar, so Rai could come and check in on her if he wanted at any time. And she's humming to herself as she scans over files and checks stuff off in a small pocketbook. The moment she can tell he's coming, mainly as Network is giving off an upbeat, almost parade march to the beat of his happy trotting steps, she does put down the pen to give him her attention for when he comes through the door.
He nudges open the door with his shoulder, holding the tray firmly. Morning, Mum.
Good morning, my little Rai. You too, sweetheart. And she does, for a fraction of a second, close her eyes with a smile as the warm breeze circles her in a hug, before focusing back on her son and the tray, eyes brightening. What's all this?
He brings it over and slides it onto the desktop. We made you breakfast.
Oh, there is a bright smile, fur fluffing slightly more, and... You made it for me? Oh, my little stars! It looks amazing!
Rye beams at that. Hopefully it tastes as good as it looks, he giggles.
Oh, Lynn is snagging one of the stools in her office so Rai can sit down, and she is ruffling the top of his head, pulling that tray close so she can take a bite immediately. And even if he hadn't rolled well, she would have still been making all the good noises. She would have eaten it all because she loves him. They made this for her!
Rye sits down and watches Lynn eat, and you can tell pretty handily that she likes it.
Yes. This child is gonna be showered in praise. This meal is going to be gone very quickly, and she is fluffy. Her tail is happily brushing against the side of her chair as she eats the omelette and sides and loves it. A very happy sigh as she sits back with the last of the tea and just goes, My little Rai. Not just an excellent puppet show master, gardener and junior detective, but also a peckin' fantastic chef. Thank you both.
Rye just grins. I'm glad you liked it. And he rounds the desk to stand beside her and give her a hug.
Oh, she's giving him a squeeze! Very peckin' proud mother. So, breakfast has been fantastic. Now, any plans for today from you,
Well, I was hoping that I could do some detective work today,
He says, almost shyly.
I need to practice.
A soft, encouraging hum from Network and a warm grin from Lynn. That can be arranged. She keeps one hand on his shoulder, the other going to her files, fingers running over them all before plucking one out. Okay, here's one I was thinking would be a decent one. A reported break-in case. Fancy side of town.
Rye takes the file in both hands, and he was thinking hard as he looks at it. Then, with a deep breath and a nod, he puts on a brave face.
I can do that. It shouldn't be too difficult, right?
A confident nod right back from Lynn. Right indeed. Now, no one got hurt in the break-in, and only a crate of fancy plates and silverware was stolen, so we don't need to panic over any serious threats. It's one of the calmest cases I've seen in a while. Makes sense given we're near the lull, but it's good for breakfast, without being too scary. Feel free to ask questions. Take your time with it. There's no pressure. And she claps her hands before giving a spin in her chair. Now, do you want to do this theory-based, as in we look through the whole case here, or do you want to go to the scene of the crime to scope it out personally?
Have you already been, or is this all reported from the client? Is client the right word?
Haven't been yet. Was deciding between this case and a few others. And was going to maybe check this site out today. Also, well done. Client is the right word. You're spot on in most cases. However, here you see, and here she flips open the file and indicates a small star at the bottom corner, along with a small sticky note in unfamiliar handwriting. Now, I also have a network of informants. Folks I've helped out along the years in one way or the other. It's a good way of making sure things don't slip through the cracks. Now, this one was sent to me by an old contact. He likes going by Jeeves. Now, Jeeves is pretty pecking sure this case isn't as cut and dry as the police say it is. So, he brought it to me so I could check it out and then go hit the police over the head with the common sense stick if I saw anything suspicious.
Oh. Well, I suppose I should look at this first, then go and have a look at the scene.
He trots around to the other side of the desk and puts the file down beside the breakfast tray.
I'll take this upstairs first.
That's the Peckin spirit. And remember, if at any time you need help or to ask a question, I'm right here.
He nods and grabs the tray, rushing upstairs.
As he does, Lynn just grins. Excited to see Rai looking forward to a case! And there is a quick hummed conversation between her and Sweetheart, sharing in this delight before she smooths her fur down. Checking for when they do go out, she has everything. Axe is by the front door, so she'll nab that on the way out. Or her crossbow that she now keeps locked in her desk. She's got her notebook, and she's always wearing her brooch and key. Yeah, this'll be good.
He comes back a few minutes later, coattails trailing behind him.
Okay, let me look at that file, and then I'll get going.
Right. Now, as we do so, always good to check our stuff before we bury into our case and rush out. Your coat's on. Now, have you got all your badges, your focus, your breakfast? And from Lynn's desk, she is pulling a very nice looking breakfast bar and drink, which does pop on the table next to the file. When we finish the case, we can go out for a solid meal, or back here for chili. That ought to do it.
Rai blushes a little.
I know I snacked on the ham and cheese while cooking. I don't remember if I actually made myself anything.
There is a hum from Network and a very insistent nudge of that closed cap bottle on the table towards Rai. Snack, breakfast, and read. Smart plan. No food, no leaving, running for case. No, no, no. As you've been enforcing with me since I got back from my stint, fine words, sweetheart.
Rai takes the bottle and opens it.
Sounds fair.
He says, taking a sip as he sits down in his usual chair on the other side of the desk.
With a very satisfied nod of Lynn's head, she flips open the file to the first page of the notes and slides it his way. A picture of a very fancy house, of a cul-de-sac, or a similar type of area, with ivy growing on the walls. Case site, Mr. Osman's summer house, Toontown.
Rai is looking through this case file, and it's not a small file, and there is a frustrated little red Grawlic scribble appearing above his head, even though his expression doesn't really change.
Jeeves sure does write a lot.
And Lynn does lean over, and yeah, the file is well sorted with several pages with pictures and descriptions and annotated notes and transcripts, and it is a lot. It is a lot. It's info overload. And she does just, as she leans over, she gives a low whistle of commiseration at the wealth of it, and she just goes, "Ah, I forgot about that. His file usually took a double mug to get through. He's good, but, thorough."
Rai is
And
frustrated for sure. He's good at reading and understanding stuff, but basically none of the information is sinking in, and he's not particularly pleased about it.
Off to a great start.
And Lynn is pulling her chair closer to Rai and making sure as she leans over part of the file that he's got her in his sight. Her face calm and warm, understanding. Not everything can be learnt straight away. Sometimes we need to take a breath, break things down, and then take a look at the case piece by piece. And she does pick up the informant note and turn it over in her hand. "I was pecking all over the shop when I first started out. Jumped the gun or chased the goose trails quite a bit before I got my rhythm." She tilts her head and makes eye contact, making sure this next part goes in. Not having a great start is okay. It's how you carry on, and how you treat yourself on the case that counts.
Rai giggles.
You're a lot less scatterbrained now that you're not drinking coffee.
He teases.
Oh, that gets a laugh and a nudge. That is a nudge from her elbow. Alright, I walked myself into that one, didn't I? And she shakes her head before thinking for a second, musing a moment. Now, most detectives do end up trying coffee. My mentor and I used to down a pot each reading some info logs. Something I will be abstaining from doing with you, as that's one of the few things I don't want you following in my footsteps on. But, and she waves a hand in the air for emphasis. Very good emphasis. But, with the right mindset, you can break anything down. And now... And she jabs her finger down on the sheet. "Now we can look at this together and see how to tackle it. One part at a time."
Rai nods and looks back down at the file.
Okay, how about we start with who was robbed?
A proud nod from Lynn. An excellent place to start. Good idea, kiddo. Now that would be on... Jeeves, pecking heck, how many pages did you give me? Page 3! And she slides it out of the shuffle pile before putting the sheets between her and Rai again. And staring up at the duo is a male toon. Monochrome and short with a handlebar moustache and a very fancy suit on. Whole 9 yards. I mean, something does seem maybe off about the outfit, but that would take some closer observation. Now, Mr. Osman, the victim. Jeeves also says the guy is the person who declared the crime originally. Called it to the police, called it 2 days ago at 0700 hours after the gentleman happened upon the scene in the second dining room of his house.
Rai squints at the picture.
I don't like him.
Yeah, Lynn's also looking at the photo with a look of... Yeah, there's concentration and distrust. There's her mouth a thin line as she takes in the details. Indeed. Can't quite put my finger on it, but... That outfit... We'll see when we get to the scene, I guess, but... Yeah. This picnic isn't all he seems at first glance.
Rai nods.
Okay, so this guy reported the theft first thing in the morning in the second dining room. Why do you need two? Even my old house only had one.
We fed 50 odd folks at least within the Toontown hub. We all had one dining room. Seems like some families just like having extra rooms to be fancy. And here she seems to focus on another detail, sliding it out from the packet. A very fancy family line. Mr. Osman is the fourth generation in this house. Huh. His brand of tune must mature quickly. Well, so it seems.
Rai prods at the front of the file.
But this says summer house. So he doesn't even live here all the time.
Holy peck. Right, you are right. This peckin' heck, this is a guy. Hey. See if you can find his other address in here. Might be useful. Jeeves likes leaving notes on this stuff as he knows I like being prepared.
Rai nods and flicks through the packet. And after a quick moment,
Here it is!
Ah! And right? As you look at this sheet of paper with the other addresses, an address for a sprawling building in the mountains, a grand estate with a garden that in the image even has a peacock's roaming. But something catches your eye. A red sticker next to the address. The name stating sold. Jeeves having circled this bit of information several times. And that Mr. Osman moved into the summer house sooner than usual this year.
His extra fancy house has been sold,
Rai points out.
Maybe he has money troubles.
Oh, and Lynn is fully focused on that, reading it over herself. Just, indeed. Well, this robbery is starting to smell worse than a week old fish in the sun, eh?
Ew!
There is a comical sticking out of her tongue for emphasis of that laugh. A very silly face in a moment of seriousness.
Rai giggles for a little bit longer and then turns back to the file.
Okay, let's look at what was stolen next.
And he does friggin' excellent at this investigation, Ron. We are so proud of him. Now, the stuff stolen is fancy. Like, full-on fine dining silverware with patterns in the handle. Plates of different styles shipped in from Ghibli. All very distinguished items. But with that investigation, it's also ones that are not easy to track. Once stolen, they're easy to melt down or lose track of when entering the antiques and money-based trades. And Jeeves himself has also made a comment on this. It's the fanciest stuff in the house besides painting or statues. He also does comment that he had to vehemently vouch for every member of staff that might have been near the cutlery to the police. But knows he doesn't have to for Detective Goldie, as you always listen to the behind-the-scenes folks. And with the way that you rolled, Rai, you would see the folded over part of the note saying that Jeeves has noticed Mr. Osman firing a great deal of his staff, seemingly for imaginary slights or minimal reasoning. A way to downsize, perhaps.
Rai frowns a bit.
Firing your staff just after getting robbed is kind of suspicious, Mr. Osman.
He points out.
With the stuff that was stolen, you would think you would have to have known what to grab, right? Easy to sell without getting caught.
Right on all accounts, my little Rai. Pick the fact that police miss something like this. And she does shake her head, looking over another sheet of writing from Jeeves. And she does say aloud that folks from gardeners to the chauffeur had been all removed from the picture. And there is a soft mutter of Grawlix at that. Well, this is why it's good folks like Jeeves trust in us to help solve these sorts of things. If you smack the folks who committed the real crime with enough evidence, eventually the law will snap them up and deliver justice. No matter what class or status the person is. Inkwell upholds that much at least. It just needs detectives like you and me to help mosey it all along.
Was Mr. Osman in the house when the theft happened? If he was alone in the house, he would have heard something, surely.
Let's see. And there is more shuffling of paper before a transcript is pulled out. And from the way this piece is creased, it seems as though Jeeves found a way to listen to the original retelling of the news from Mr. Osman, and then was able to get the information down. Okay. So, Mr. Osman's the one who stumbled upon the scene at 0700, inspecting the dining room's state of cleanliness before breakfast. Unlocked the door himself with the master key. Found the room in muddy boot disarray with a shuttered window. Missing the large storage box of silver. Why did he have the Pekin silverware boxed? He's been in this house the whole Pekin summer and allegedly used it enough to know when it was gone. So why the heck would it be packed and not in a drawer?
And why would he need to check that the dining room was clean? He still has his maid staff on.
Rai's frowning.
That doesn't make sense. Either you trust your staff to keep the house clean, or you don't and you replace them with someone else. It really is starting to sound like he set up the whole... Oh.
He stops and starts looking through the file.
Is there anything in here about insurance?
There is. Amongst many different sheets of attached information of legal affairs within the household, the insurance policy is up to date, but close to expiring. Still present for now, including a very sizable handout for if anything was stolen. And Lynn has also noticed something from the port and the images of the dining room. Doors locked. He had the master key. Muddy blueprints this far in the house? There'd be a trail if they went through the house, not just in that one room. Jeeves hasn't put a single pecking comment about any mud in the rest of the house.
Well, it does say broken window, but someone would have heard that. You can't really shatter a window quietly. So someone would have had to have heard that before the morning. Also, why would there have been mud? Was it raining the night before?
Weather. No, it's been dry as you like for the past several days. Dusty boots maybe with effort, but not muddy. And here, the windowsill is white varnish. Completely immaculate! Maybe they stepped over, but... And Rai, from where you're looking over all these notes, looking at the shattered window in the image, you know from all the information here that the door being locked, the window is the point everything revolves back to. But looking at the photos, it doesn't make sense. For someone to break in to steal these items, the floor would have glass strewn on it. The floor inside only has muddy boot prints. The window has been shattered outward, and to do so would make noise unless... And here you think back, from the suit from earlier, the suit that Mr. Osman was wearing. The whole 9 yards, except there is no pocket watch chain or true cufflinks besides the fancy-looking plain buttons. No monocle or fancy hat. And the jacket doesn't suit the rest of the outfit. as though it was hurriedly changed. And to shatter a window outwards, to do so would make noise unless the proper suit jacket was used to muffle the noise of a breaking window and widening the hole.
Mom, we should go and have a look at the house.
Rai decides, standing up.
I think he's trying to commit insurance fraud.
And Lynn, Detective Stagehand, stands up as well, shoulders squared in the stance of a detective who's danced this criminal waltz 100 times. Always surprising just which way the opponent will turn. But this time it appears a little shadow stripping them up into the hands of the law. Alright? Sweetheart, get Jeeves on the line. He can't speak your language, but he knows what a wonderful trill of yours means. He's good at getting the police to follow him. We get to the scene, smack 'em all with the evidence, and we blow this scam wide open like a pair of blinds in a hurricane. Right? Congratulations. I think you've successfully cracked a case wide open.
He blushes.
We can't celebrate yet. We still have to go and talk to him and look around and stuff.
Very true. Alright. Grab the case file, my little Rai, and let's get going. The case is on! And there is a dash over to her desk for her crossbow to fit on her wrist. And she fits it on her wrist underneath her waistcoat sleeve. And as she gets to the door, a particularly harsh stomp has Sweetheart happily knocking her axe into her hand, as well as her hat coming off the coat rack and into her other waiting hand. A detective in full gear. Alright, Osman's summer house on 10th. Decent distance, but coverable. Let's peckin' catch ourselves a mother-peckin' fraudster.
Rai giggles and adjusts his coat before jogging after her.
Gonna take my coat out for its first case.
And she beams back at him, giving him a once-over before nodding, and she is so proud and ready to show it. And as they dash to the scene, Toontown seems to blur slightly, in that way that when action demands, sometimes a scene change or a montage lets happen. Toontown on their side. And she calls back, okay, so we have our mother pecker, we have our proof. Now we need to figure out what we have left to find and solve. Part of which I'd presume would be find the peckered silverware, if he hasn't fenced it already. Any thoughts on this, my little Rai? Junior Detective Stagehand?
Rai puts a hand to his chin.
Well, either he got rid of it the night before reporting it, or he hid it somewhere to sell after the whole police thing calmed down. If he's dumb, he'll be trying to move the stuff while the police and inspectors are still looking over his house as a crime scene,
He supposes.
Most likely hidden. Too long to travel all the way out somewhere to pawn off all he took, and then make it back to report. Way too risky, and our man was in a hurry to change and get this show on the road. Moving the goods wise, we either catch him in the act, or the good thing is, even if he isn't fully dumb and has decided to wait. From what I've seen, this guy may dress fancy, but he doesn't have any gloves on. We find the box, and it'll be covered in fingerprint evidence. Although he will want to be moving semi-fast. That insurance policy lasted till the end of the month, and then it was gonna be, kaput.
Okay, so we need to look for hiding places around the house that's big enough for the box, but still inconspicuous.
Indeed, or... And here Lynn trails off in concentration and seems to count something under her breath. Or maybe not necessarily in. What type of helpers did he fire again?
Rai pulls out the report and looks it over.
Let's see. Gardener and the chauffeur. Oh, in the garden or in the garage,
Rai declares.
If he fired those thefts, they couldn't find the box of stolen goods while he was waiting for the insurance payout.
Mm-hmm. Now, the gardeners could have told folks the muddy boot prints were impossible. So, to someone like Mr. Osmond, who's lightly making those budget cuts right now, it was a two birds, one stone. Get rid of anyone who can dispute, and not have to pay them fully for their past services. Plus, with no fingers pointing to any suspicions, no one would think to check those places. And there are a few notes of very pleased Grawlix at how quickly Rai is catching on, and they float around Lynn, and she does snatch a bright orange exclamation point from the air and points at him. Now, the garage might be our best bet on that front. Muddy boot prints in the house would have made folks think to check outside and around. Anyone going in the garage could also be counted as suspicious, and a reason for Mr. Osmond to get angry, seeing as everything related to the case is outside or in the second dining room. It's a good cover-up.
Rai giggles, bouncing from one foot to the other.
Do we investigate?
That we heckin' do! We'll need to figure out how to get in to the garage. Divide and conquer might work, so we don't get any trespassing accusations. Same time, splitting up in a place like this house might not be wise. Easy to get lost.
A mischievous look comes over his face.
We sneak?
A matching look straight back at him. And Lynn does before she continues digging her hammer space, not fumbling, before pulling out a buddy plane, seemingly filling in a few blank spaces on the sheet as if she had planned for a similar occasion before sending it off. I've sent out a message to the local authority. This way we are investigating without fully trespassing. Now we can peck and sneak to our heart's content legally. Let's peck and do this, my wonderful apprentice.
Rai lets out a wicked little giggle.
If only I could take you into the shadows with me. That'd be perfect.
Oh, that would be peckin' fantastic. But don't worry. While I can't slip into shadows, and here she grins, orange sparks seeming to backlight from the action, showing off her hands and the way the orange glow of her magic seems to be weaving into her outline. But I can climb on walls and ceilings pretty peckin' good. No one ever thinks to look up.
Rai giggles and nods.
Okay, let's get going.
And Lynn loves her son so much.
He's all just casting Pass Without Trace. That's fine.
Pass Without Trace is a peckin' useful spell and we love to see it. Now, as they get to the cul-de-sac with the summer house, Lynn points out ways to get into the area. How someone like Teal could scale a wall or jump over a particularly flat roof of a security point. Then she proceeds to do that to prove her point. And this place is laughably easy for these two to sneak into. And from there to make their way to the ivy-coated house from the photo. And it certainly looks, well, full of riches and fancy. Jeeves included a very up-to-date photo in the file. And sneaking over the manicured grass and out of sight of the window is as easy as can be. It appears the garage is tucked around the back of the building, if the gravel driveway is anything to go by. And around the back of the house is also a good site to perhaps check out for the crime scene itself, as the secondary dining room faces out towards the garden.
Rai slinks from shadow to shadow, having a grand old time. He hasn't done any serious sneaking like this since he was on the streets of Fraymore Town. He follows the driveway to the garage and starts poking around for a window or door he could get access via.
And for a golden ball of a monkey, Lynn knows how to blend well. Her hat pulled low and her waistcoat collar up to hide as much as she can, old and practiced. As they both go, Rai can see the windows, but they all seem the aesthetic type that are sealed shut. However, once the garage is in sight, there is a wide metal door, the type that slides upward. Seems pretty flimsy for metal sheet. Perhaps been replaced with less expensive metals.
All he needed was half an inch, and those sorts of doors often had space at the edges. And even if this one didn't, a nice lean from his mum against the metal ought to do it. He slid right up onto the metal and peeked at the edge.
As Lynn stands outside, she does peek around the edge of the garage to the garden, and Rai can clearly hear her scoff. Ugh. He fired all the help stuff and has just left the mess. It didn't clean up the glass. How the police didn't figure out this stuff has been broken in to out and not out to in. With that spread, I'll never peckin' know.
Rai nods a bit.
If I had to guess, the perp's not easy to work with and didn't want it solved proper so he could get his payout.
And Rai can't see it, but Lynn is nodding along herself, and her mind on that similar track as she calls softly in. Indeed. And it's around the back of the house. It's not as though it's going to cause any fuss with the neighbours seeing a ruined garden. Perfect place for no witnesses, yet all the gains of a display for the police to get their verdict and then the payout. Enough evidence to get solved and be able to make a fuss over without it destroying his image. And inside the garage, there are so many boxes, Rai. The car inside is a nice one, silver and shiny, almost looking fake with how polished it is. Not a scratch on it. The chauffeur did a very good job caring for it. Care as if Mr. Osman put effort into facades over reality. But there is a tiny bit of dust forming on it now, though as the place has been undisturbed for several days with the chauffeur no longer around. But past the car with the boxes, there is something he notices. How some near the door have been piled haphazardly. One small box crate looking newer than the others. Slightly more tan, as if there had been as though it had been in a room with more light than this semi-dark and enclosed garage.
Rai heads over and tries to see if there was an easy way of getting it open without needing to use brute strength.
And laughably, Mr. Osman wouldn't dare ask for any help from anyone on securing this box crate. And he himself as well. To actually seal up this box properly would take effort. And effort he did not put in. The lid has 3 nails in it, instead of even 1 at each corner. And Rai, as a carpenter, can tell they aren't even in the right type of nail to actually keep the lid down on a box like this. Or even nailed in that deep. It's a mockery of craftsmanship.
Rai reaches into his coat to access his hammer space and pulls out a claw hammer to take the nails out, shaking his head with a few quiet tut-tut sounds.
And he didn't even need to roll strength. This guy did terribly. The nails come out extremely easily with a claw hammer, and the lid even pops open slightly as the final one is plucked out.
Rai smiles to himself and stashes his hammer before pulling off the lid and looking inside.
And inside, twinkling in the dim light, is all the stolen silverware in its shiny and expensive glory. The additional plates are bundled up in rolls of tissue paper and packaged up, but also still visible. Mr. Osmond has clearly never wrapped something in his life, and if this is his best performance. But here they are. It's all here. It's all been found.
Rai giggles, very proud of himself. He quickly dashes back over to Lynn.
Found it! All of it!
And Lynn perks up from her casual lean against the door outside the garage, grinning in pride at his achievement and the sure taste of imminent case closure. Peckin' fantastic. Now, did you touch any of the inside?
Nope, I was careful not to.
Good. That means anything that the police can get a hold of will show only the mother picker's fingerprints. No wiggling out of this. Now we just have to wait for... right on pecking cue, Jeeves. And in the distance there is the sound of police whistles, of a small mob of officers, and then a rustle. And from over one of the manicured hedgerows, a semi-refined looking Frankenelli, you want to say Schnauzer or Terrier dog toon, who utterly betrays any calm and dignity his form should portray as he leaps over the bushes, rolls, adjusts his nice, somewhat butler-inspired outfit, and then pelts towards the duo the second he sees the blue coats. A tiny golden star badge gleaming in the light. And grinning as he comes up, he is signing at rapid speed, as his handwriting suggested. This guy talks much and talks long. And he goes, "Gave them the runaround until they actually started paying attention to me and following. None of them know a lick of science, so I had to improvise. May have destroyed a garden gnome on the west side of this building, so Mr. Osman should be joining us soon as well. If you'll excuse me, it's been rough work. I'm going to hide. You saw nothing." And he scrambles up the trellis on the side of the garage and plasters himself out of sight on the roof.
Rai is a bit stunned by that.
Ow, what was that?
He asks, looking at Lynn.
And Lynn is beaming wide, grinning in that way that she says she has seen this song and dance 100 times before. And she shakes her head, trying to disguise her mirth as she steps into a detective role, ready for the police to arrive. And she just goes, "That, my little Rai, was Jeeves. That old dog never does anything by halves, let me tell you."
So, what is his job? Is he a detective like us? Or a policeman?
He's technically got the job of network informant. I've got a few of those from over the years, useful for whistleblowing or directing police, or myself to things that need sorting. But his main day-to-day job is as, well, hired help for events or estates. Means I get all the gossip from a range of fancy places that I couldn't get into if I just strolled up. People forget just because he doesn't speak doesn't mean he can't hear or see things.
Rai nods.
That makes sense. He signs fast, though.
Yeah, he's got incredibly fast hands. One of the reasons I can sign as quickly as I do. It'll be easier to understand given time. It's also a useful skill of his. Good for doing his help. It's good for his help work passing trays and mixing drinks, signing info, and for writing wonderfully detailed packets of information. And she does glance up at the roof, adjusts her waistcoat back into looking at its finest. And there is, you can almost tell as though there should be a soft woof of laughter if he did make any noise. And it's at this point the group of police officers manage to work their way around the shrubbery. And with them, a red-faced monochrome man, Mr. Osmond himself. Clearly unhappy and making it very well known by his angry muttering to the nearest of the officers as the group scans ready to search for the missing canine. which they do not find. They are terrible at searching. It is almost a disappointment.
Rai starts straightening his coat. Oh dear, gotta look presentable. Oh dear!
And Lynn does give her son a reassuring nod and a shoulder squeeze, before her expression slips into something different to how he's used to. Professional and detached, yet still smiling. A presentation of amicability. A detective with her cards kept to her chest, waiting for the curtain call. Now the voices become clear as a small gaggle of officers and their companions get closer. A very distinguished voice becomes more pronounced, and I have to do voices now. This is an outrage. I want a full inquiry. Don't give me your platitudes. I want the Rapscallion court. I want them held accountable. For all we know, that mutt could be the one responsible for my missing dining heirlooms. I will not stand for this. And here Mr. Osman does seem to catch on to the bright blue-dressed figure standing in front of his garage. The detective hat and the shining gold and rainbow star badge on the duo clear to see. And then the police seem to have all focused on it as well. And he just goes, "Who the devil are you?" "Ah. Good morning, Mr. Osmond. My name is Detective Lil Rai Stagehand, and my partner here is my apprentice, Junior Detective Lil Rai Stagehand, at your service. We heard about the dreadful business here, and were called in to help settle the matter."
Rai makes a pretty good effort at hiding how dang pleased he was to be introduced that way, and also, gotcha, scumbag!
And, right, Mr. Osmond, as well as he hides it from the police, has, for a monochrome toon, gone very pale. The redness of his face draining away in sudden realization and uneasy fear. The police have been safe, but a new party? What's more, it is clear he knows of Detective Stagehand. From the news, most likely. He knows where he found you both, and his eyes flicker to the garage door. It's clear to see he is the culprit. He knows what's in there. But perhaps you both haven't gone in? Perhaps he can still win this. And he seems to collect himself after a moment. He has a little height on both of you, but not by much, and he's peering down his nose as he smiles in that tight-lipped way that could almost be classed as a sneer before speaking. "Thank you, Ms. Stagehand, for your offer of assistance, but the case is resolving itself. The police's finest are here, already handling it all. We have our mongrel thief as soon as he shows himself. It's a wasted effort on your parts to be here. Good day."
Rai sorely wishes he were big like Ava was. This man needed to be punted over the back fence.
We are here for support to the police, sir. It's no trouble, it's what we do.
Indeed. My apprentice is right. We are happy to help in every way we can, including ensuring justice is served to the best of our ability. But I'm sure the police have done a fantastic job of things. Constable, tell me, how goes the search for whoever broke out of the building? And there is, one of the police officers does seem to shake out of his stupor because, hello, yes, Detective Stagehand on a case. This is real. Wow. This isn't how anyone thought this day was going to go. And he does just go, break out? She meant to break in! A break-in to my wonderful estate and the pilfering of my belongings. And it is a hurried response. A sharp interjection from Mr. Osmond, now fully staring at both stagehands as he truly realizes just how close his lies are coming to being unveiled. Oh, do I now? My mistake. I assumed from the glass? And here she turns to Rai, and yeah, she's very skillful at hiding how much she's enjoying this. And there is a wink as she turns to Rai, hidden from view as she faces him, and she just goes, Junior Detective, I could have sworn from the glass that someone was leaving the building. What did you think?
Rai nods, pointedly looking at Lynn and not at the nobleman.
From the direction of the glass shards, the window was broken from inside the house. If it were shattered from outside, there would have been some glass inside the dining room,
He answers as professionally as he could muster.
And there is a confident nod from Lynn, letting him know he did perfectly. Right, you are indeed. Thank you. Now, from what we know of the report, you see, we make sure all our cases have a good base before taking them, Constable. Isn't it right that Mr. Osman here is the one with the master key, and that there were no boot prints into the rest of the house besides, the state of the secondary dining room? And the constable finally seems to start pulling himself together more, and he nods. Brow knitting together, gears starting to finally turn. Right as always, Detective Stagehands. We found no sign of any other tamperings in the building, nor any traces of mud leading to the... No magic was detected at the scene for teleportation or invisibility. The only way to get in and leave everything else immaculate would be the window. But if the criminal didn't enter through the window to get in, then something in this narrative doesn't quite fit. And she finishes for him, grinning slightly in a way that now shows a few teeth. Still polite, showing that the duo have cards in their hand. And Mr. Osman paling further as he stands up straight, trying to push back. And yet, my belongings were still stolen. Clearly your presumptions leave something to be desired. They have most certainly been taken from the dining room. Which way the glass falls is preposterous. Irrelevant in nature. The boot prints, the box being missing is all the proof you need.
Rai hums, trying to sound thoughtful.
show evidence, rest our case, or draw out Teasmore.
Lynn checks her notebook and nods thoughtfully, and Rai, you can see the page is blank. It's a very good cover movement, and she hums back networked speech. Time for lunch soon. Rest our case now. Catch Mother Pecker. Open door, show evidence, little shadow open with inside button, grand reveal. And she rocks back on her heels before gesturing grandly with her hand, taking all eyes on herself so Rai can do what he needs to as she continues in a detective spiel of grand unveiling. And Mr. Osman buys it hook, line, and sinker, all eyes glued to her.
Rai laughs softly and steps into Lynn's shadow, slipping back into the garage. These things weren't complex. There was a button by the door, and he just went, pushed it, activating it.
And as the door clanks and rises, Rai can clearly see Lynn in her element. Detective Stagehand standing with shoulders backed, timing her actions in a way for a grand unveiling as the door clangs as it rises fully, focusing all attention behind her and at the box stands out as clear as day by her boy. And she's wrapping up her speech with a flourish and gesturing for the police to see it in all its glory, the box that Rai found. Our conclusion? The hidden box. A crate of your stolen belongings in the one place no one would think to look, as you! And she points at the now entirely white man with very round eyes. As you, Mr. Osmond, fired anyone who could stand in your way. With no one to deny your claims, the insurance payout would have set you up for a while. Or at least until you could pull your next plot. A clever ruse only marred by your many flaws and holes along the way that my apprentice so cleverly deduced and unfolded. You are nothing but a liar and a fraudster, whose scheme has met its end. Constable, Arrest this mother pecker. And there is a flurry of activity as the sputtering gentleman is very much turned upon by the group he had surrounded himself with. A few officers coming in to marvel over the found items, while the others go to hauling off the irate and shocked man, his deception unveiled in its entirety. Lynn, meanwhile, watches this all and then slowly walks backwards so she can watch the man while coming to stand beside Rai. And that's how you pick and do it.
Rai starts bouncing and giggling hysterically.
Did you see the look on his face?
And Lynn's composure cracks slightly as she grins back at him, cackling. White as a pecking sheet! I thought the mother pecker was gonna faint! Oh, that was pecking fantastic!
Rai just continues to giggle giddily.
that was fun.
That was the pecking best! Oh, you did so good! And she's giving him a side hug and squeeze. I am so proud of you! You did pecking fantastic the whole way, oh my little shining star!
Rai leans into her.
It's too bad they can't all be that straightforward. But that felt great.
A case closed with a neat bow and a happy ending. Now, Mr. Osman is going to have to pay a peck ton to the folks he wrongfully fired, and the courts will resolve the rest. The best feeling of all, and Lynn breathes in almost as though she is savouring the air of victory. The best feeling of all. Now, not every case is as clear-cut as this, but it's good to be able to take one of these cases from time to time. Real evidence of doing good. And with time, you'll see the patterns in more cases. They'll be easier to solve, or find the paths likely to lead to conclusions. But for now, I'd consider this a pecking, roaring success.
Rai grins.
Do good detectives get to have lunch?
Good detectives get lunch. And peckin' fantastic junior detectives get lunch and ice cream. And she's beaming at him, nodding at a few police officers as they carefully pick up the crate of evidence. The work of Lynn and Rai, detective stagehands. It's done, it seems, all the work. And there is a faint sound from the roof as Mr. Osman is dragged away in clear sight from the roof and out towards the front of the building. A certain butler dusting himself off, giving a wave at the retreating, scrabbling form in the police's arms before he makes his retreat, ready to drop by the agency another time for a full debrief with Detective Stagehand. But back to the duo, as Lynn ruffles the top of his head and guides him out to light again. Come on, wherever you want to go, whatever you want to eat. My treat, kiddo. You've earned it with all that brain power.
Oh, let's go for a walk and see what we can find.
An excellent plan, my little Rai. A little adventure to cap off the grand one. When we get home, I know the network will love to hear all about this. Oh, they are going to be so impressed with you. And she leads him back around the gravel path to the front. And we close our case in the best way possible. Our intrepid detectives basking in victory. The villain defeated, the truth unveiled. And as they head off into the not the sunset, the midday sun, a reporter who had seen the tail end of the ruckus does manage to snag a photo. Two proud detectives in gleaming blue waistcoats, heads held high with victory and smiling as they talk to each other, walking away past the police tape. Mr. Osman's outraged face in the background as he is ducked into a police car, guilty for all to see. And tomorrow morning's paper will have a stunning image in it, and a good title to boot. Detectives Stagehand and Stagehand, a fancy fraudster foiled.
The end. Oh dear, that was so much fun. Twice over, that's great.
That it was.
Oh, that was wonderful. Well, thank you for reading this with me, Vwild. That was good.
Happy to do so, my fellow gremlin.
Oh, keep your ears out, folks. We're going to be doing more of these. We've got no shortage of options.
Whoop whoop.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.